It's August 2020, 6 months after the state of emergency in Ontario, 6 months after the declaration of a pandemic, and 6 months of significant contradictions in COVID policy. We all know in Ontario that we're well past the peak, which happened in April. That's when we had peak caseloads, peak fatality rates, and it's been on a decline ever since. Now to the point where there are few, if any, deaths, few, if any, positive cases. But that hasn't stopped us, hasn't stopped government from continually adding new complications and restrictions into our lives. The most outrageous restriction, in my view, is, and this has happened throughout most of Ontario, through our local health units, is the mandatory wearing of masks when we're out in public. In my area, that came into effect in July, even though we hadn't had an active case in our communities since the end of May. But in July, we decided that it was time to make wearing masks mandatory, even though back in March and April, at the height of the pandemic, we were told masks did not prevent the spread. Now that we have no spread, we have to wear masks. And, you know, if anybody looks at this in a reasonable fashion, I believe a reasonable fashion, there's little danger, there is no evidence of spread, measurable spread. All through the height of it, we could go into the stores, practice social distancing, and it was safe. But now, if you go into the store, you have to wear a mask. Let me just say, I haven't worn a mask. I have no intention of wearing a mask. I believe the mandatory wearing of masks has been an order to appease public opinion and to give the people some sort of appeasement that government is doing something, when in fact they are not. And I want to add this. I've heard from a significant number of people who believe wearing a mask in public is foolish, that it does no good, that it may actually do more harm than good. But because of peer pressure and because of public opinion, because they don't want to have a confrontation, they wear a mask. They dislike it. They think it's wrong. They think it provides no benefit, but they do it. Well, let me phrase it this way, because public opinion is important in developing public policies. If you wear a mask, you're telling government that you believe their policy is right. May not see that, but every time you wear a mask, you're confirming the government policy that it's the correct policy. As I said, I've not worn a mask. And there is no need or benefit wearing a mask. For me, and I should have said this at the beginning, wearing a mask may be important for some people. If you are sick, if you're coughing, if you're sneezing, but you have to go out, maybe you should be wearing a mask, right? If you have to go out and you know you're sick or have the symptoms. If you're elderly, if you have a frail immune system, if your health is not great, maybe you should wear a mask. But if you're healthy and you're not sick, there is no benefit to wearing a mask. And I've seen it. We've seen, let's put an end to this falsehood that you're wearing a mask to help me. That is bullshit. When I see people driving around in their cars by themselves wearing a mask, they are not doing that for my benefit.